But they don't believe in Tur?
No. The Siman Tav Kuf Tesvav deals with non-Jews giving us gifts on Shabbat, on Yantif, right? Whether they brought them from a place that should be Aser or not. So this is a more common issue in Chutz La'aretz, right? What a non-Jew can do for you than it is in Eretz Yisrael, right? I used to have lots of non-Jews that I had done favors for at one point or another that brought me gifts before Jewish holidays or on Jewish holidays or all sorts of things. All sorts of things. Yes, I did get non-kosher wine from some of them, and I gave them to the janitor in the shul. Like whatever. I mean, so avodas gulilim she'abיא Dורון לישראל ביום טוב.
In today's day and age,
what?
You really have gullilim.
No, but this. I doubt the original text was this. The censors required this, right? They took out anytime it said nochri or something like that. They replaced it with either avodat klavim or avodat gulilim. It's and sometimes it got ridiculous, by the way. So,
just something came to mind when we think about nochri.
Yeah.
Okay, are we talking about anybody who's a non-Jew?
Yes.
So because
it depends.
No, when I talk about, let's say the Noahides,
yeah,
they are the most halachic Gentiles you can get. So there's no avodat gulilim or this or that.
No, I understand, but what we're going to get into has nothing to do with that. So that's not
okay. But this would apply to them as well.
Yeah. It has. What this siman has to do with is benefiting from work that's done in Yom Tov. That would be prohibited work for a Jew. If a non-Jew does it, it doesn't matter. I'm still not allowed to benefit from the work that a non-Jew does. All right? And I don't care whether it's an idol worship or anything else. But in the Bamberg Shas, the famous, Shas that was 500 years ago, exactly 500 years ago this year was printed. Mm-hmm. So there was censorship in it. And one of the things that was censored, all right, is every time it said min, heretic, minim, whatever, it was replaced with akum. What is klavim mazalas? In Ketzad Mavarchim, all right, of the Pirak in Brachos that deals with what Brachos you say over different periods. So the bracha there over cake is Berei Yakum Mazanos. Yeah, the censors weren't necessarily intelligent. They were given a list of things. You change this to that, change this to that. So it's Berei Yakum Mazanos. I would have to look at it. Yeah. So a non-Jew who brings you a gift on Yom Tov, im yesh bimino במחובר or מחוסר צידה, if this type of thing is, you can find it at this season, still attached to the ground, unharvested yet, or an animal that is untrapped, right? Asul laוכלו ביום. You're not allowed to eat it on that day. ואפילו לטלטלו, and even to move it. ולערב אסורין בכדי שיעשו. And in the evening, you have to wait enough time to have done whatever prohibited activity it was, right? To have before you can use it. Lepeirush Rashi, there's a major machlokas in this whole thing that goes between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. Bebeis yamim tovim shel galios mutar biyad beliil yom tov sheni bekday shi'asу. According to Rashi, if it's on the first day of Yom Tov that he brings you the prohibited thing, right? And let us say it would take an hour to harvest and bring it here, all right? Then an hour after Yom Tov is over, you're allowed to use it. Why? Because if the first day was Yom Tov, the second day is not Yom Tov, right? Mm-hmm. So an hour after Yom Tov is over, it could have been done not on Yom Tov, and so at that point I can use it. If the second day is Yom Tov and not the first day, then it was harvested and brought to me
When it was cold.
when it was chol. So it doesn't, either way, it doesn't matter. All right? Umihu, but gam im huvah b'yom sheni צריך להמתין במוצאי Yom Tov בכדי שיעשו. If it's brought in the second day, right, I have to wait בכדי שיעשו, because if the second day is Kodesh, right, then I have to wait. I'm not allowed to use it today. By the way, this idea that has developed, I mean, the laws of a Shabbos goy are much more machmir on Shabbos than on Yom Tov. This idea that you have a goy working for you and he can do anything, right? You see from this is not true at all, right? And it was interesting. I always felt, I mean, this is clearly the halacha, that as much as possible, we're not supposed to use a non-Jew to do something. For instance, if we have janitors in the shul and you want them to clean up afterwards, if it's easier for them to use a vacuum cleaner than sweep up, they can use a vacuum cleaner because they're using it to make their life easier, right? I don't care how it's done. Fine. But to tell them to do something on Shabbos or Yom Tov that I could have told them to do in advance, that's a big problem, all right? Amir Lakum is a big problem. But people don't think of it that way. And by the way, I also think, especially, I don't know other places, but in Southern California, all the janitors in shuls are Hispanic, and most of them don't speak English very well. And when they hear someone say on Shabbos or Yom Tov, it's dark in this room, right? What they hear
is turn
on the light, right? It's not a remisa to them, right? It's turn on the light.
So does that matter?
Yes, it does, because sometimes
Why? Because we're doing
I'll
the right
explain.
thing.
I'll explain.
Just it's
Because
their issue, not our issue.
No, because if it's a hint that they have to figure out what I want, then it's viewed as less invasive than because a direct request is prohibited. If they perceive it as a direct request, right? That's the problem. By the way, when I hire the janitor and I've seen this in shuls. They hire the janitor, they explain, we're not allowed to ask you to do something, so we'll hint, we want this done. What are you telling the guy?
Exactly.
I understand. So
you can't have your cake and eat it too, and that's what you're trying to do.
that's what I'm saying.
So either stop this business or stop playing the game.
When I was the associate rabbi and executive director of a shul,
right,
I had timers installed on all the lights in the shul that we might use on Shabbos and Yom Tov.
That's great, but things still happen.
Things happen.
And that's when I would say just hire a Jew and you don't have this problem.
I will say the janitors would always check. I mean, I never had to instruct them to do this. They would go through and make sure everything's set up as it has to be in advance. No one's telling them anything on Shabbos or Yom Tov, and they're just fixing whatever needs to be fixed. That's fine. But and then there's a whole idea of l'tzarich mitzvah. If something is needed for a mitzvah, for instance, the lights went out in the room where you were davening, and people can't read their siddurim.
It's a very slippery slope.
No, it is. But I mean,
I know that if I go to a fine hotel and I'm there on Shabbat with my kippah on, the people who work there already know. I don't have to tell them anything. They know the weird things and they do it. But somebody along the line told them to do it.
I understand. But there is it was certainly true that someone that worked for Jews all the time learns these things, and they just do it. If they do it without being asked, then it's mutar. The asking is where it becomes a problem, or when it's just for fun. Meaning, I can't. Well, let's continue over here. בשני ימים טובים של Rosh Hashanah, but on the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, which is considered Yom Arichta, or ביום טוב שלאחר Shabbos or שלפניו, or Yom Tov that immediately follows Shabbos or is before it, right? Where both days are Asur, right? It's not a sefek, right? Both days of Rosh Hashanah are Asur. Shabbos and Yom Tov is Asur. צריך להמתין במוצאי Yom Tov v'Shabbos כדי שיעשו. I have to wait after the second of whatever these is, either Shabbos or Yom Tov, right? בכדי שיעשו, enough time to do it. Perish. K'dei shi'asu k'dei hatlisha ve'atzeda levada. This is enough time to harvest it or trap an animal. Ve'in צריך להמתין k'dei hava'a. But I don't have to wait the amount of time it would have taken him to bring it here. All right? This is a machlokas between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam, by the way. Rashi is machmer on this, and Rabbeinu Tam is meko. All right? And there, we'll get to more things, more differences between them. L'chen, v'kodem b'kdei shi'assu, asorin l'kol. And before k'dei shi'assu, it's prohibited to everyone. Af l'mi shelo huva'u b'shvilo. Even for the person that wasn't brought for him. Right? Ve'afilu im sefek im nilketu hayom. Even if there's a doubt whether it was harvested today, im lav or not, asorin, they're still prohibited. But if you know they weren't picked today, for instance, he brings you a basket of dates and figs on Pesach, right? They weren't harvested today because you can't find any figs and dates on the trees, right? But if it's on Sukkot, right?
You sure can.
You sure can, right? So, like, there are many things like this. Mutar miyad, they're immediately permitted, right? Meaning,
if you absolutely know that he did not do a malacha to bring you this gift,
right?
Then it's mutar.
For instance, there's no malacha of hotzah on Yom Tov, so that doesn't matter, right? And hotzah is actually considered a different malacha than all the other malachos. In terms of this.
What is hotzah?
Carrying. Because carrying is a malacha that doesn't change the thing I'm dealing with.
But what about buying it?
That's a rabbinic prohibition. Not going to deal with that here. Right? If they're within the tchum Shabbos, right, then there's no problem with him bringing me something either on Shabbos or Yom Tov. I don't care. For the Rabbeinu Tam, I said everything up to now was Rashi. Now we're going to get Rabbeinu Tam. Afילו בשני ימים טוב גליות אסורין עד מוצאי יום טוב שני בכדי שיעשו. Rabbeinu Tam says 1 day, 2 days, I don't care. The whole time is prohibited. The Rabbeinu Tam's logic is as follows.
So Rashi is very mako relative to
Rabbeinu Tam. Right. This is a pretty normal thing, by the way. Rabbeinu Tam is concerned that I'm going to have someone bring something to me on the first day of Yom Tov so I can use it on the second. Right? I don't want it today. I want it tomorrow. So if I have him bring my dessert, the fruits I'm going to serve for dessert today on the first day of Yom Tov, then I can use it the next day. No. Because of that possibility, Rabbeinu Tam prohibits it. Uperush k'dei shi'assu, and what does he mean as k'dei shi'assu? K'shei shi'uchlu lahavi mimin ze mimakom akarov. I have to include, according to Rabbeinu Tam, how long it would take to bring it. Meaning not only the time to harvest it or to catch it, right? I also have to include the time to bring it. So if it's Sukkot's time, right, and I have a concern that these dates were harvested today, right? And the nearest date palms that you could harvest them from are 40 minutes drive from here, right? You have to wait 40 minutes plus the 10 or 15 minutes it takes to climb up the tree and harvest the dates and get back down, right? You have to include all of that. All right? Whatever is the closest thing to the city where they have them. But Rabbeinu Tam says it's only for the person that was brought for him that's prohibited. Other people can eat it immediately. Then there's a note here, L'Erev Yom Aleph, in the evening of the first thing, Belilah, in the evening. Ve'afilu oso shehuva b'shvilo, and even the person that was brought for him, im ha'nochri talshan letzorko, if the non-Jew harvested for him, b'shuv heviu lo, and he brought it, meaning the non-Jew is harvesting for himself, right? He wants dates, so he goes out and cuts down some dates. Now, dates come in these huge clusters. He cuts down the whole cluster. He's got extra, right? So, you see him eating dates, and he's got the extras, and he says, here, you've always been a good neighbor, have some dates. Mutar miyad, they're immediately mutar, belilah, in the evening. It doesn't require bekday shi'ashu. V'ken davar hanitzud, and so too if he traps something.
And that wouldn't be considered nola?
No. It existed, it was on the tree. No, it wasn't here. Hanitzud me'alav, something is trapped itself, meaning, or perosh nishru me'alehan, or fruit that drops down off the tree on its own. Asorin bo b'yom, they're prohibited on the day. B'layla mutar miyad, in the evening they're immediately permitted. V'imchal Yom Tov b'yom hey. If the first day of Yom Tov is hey, v'shishi, and of course, if the first day of Yom Tov is Thursday, second day of Yom Tov is Friday. V'uva b'yom rishon, and the non-Jew brings me stuff on the first day of Yom Tov. Kasa bal ha'itur she'asurin ad motzi Shabbos. The bal ha'itur, he was one of the German balei tosfos. He says it's asur until motzi Shabbos. Bekday shi'ashu, and I have to add kedei shi'ashu motzi Shabbos. V'ken kasa bahag, and so too the bahag says it. Ve'ari mi parish hitir b'leil Shabbos bekday shi'ashu, and the Ri from Paris allowed it Friday night as soon as enough time has passed to do it Friday night. And my father, the Rosh, agreed to this. Bimino and something that you don't find attached to the ground, and it doesn't have to be trapped. It's not a wild animal. If he brought it from inside the Tchum Shabbos. Right. By the way, if you're in a place like New York or Manhattan or Los Angeles, right, he's not bringing it from outside of the Tchum Shabbos, right? You have to go so far to get outside the Tchum. Right? It's not shaykh. In a place like Netanya, he could. I mean, wouldn't take you 20 minutes to get.
One of the towns in Europe.
Yeah, or a shtetl in not a shtetl, a yeshuv in Eretz
I'd be
Yisrael.
conscious of Yahi. When you go hiking in Seward, Alaska, that's for sure actually a thing.
Yeah. Vim ba michutz l'tchum, asur laוכלו. If anything that comes from outside of the Tchum Shabbos, whether it's Shabbos or Yom Tov, you can't eat it. L'mi shu huvah b'shvilo, for the person that's brought for. Ava mutar lטלטלן, but he's allowed to move it. Ve'acherim mutarim, af laוכלן. The other people are allowed to eat it, even to eat it. ולערב צריך להמתין mishuva b'shvilo בכדי שיעשו, and in the evening, the one that it was brought for has to wait כדי שיעשו, right? The Rav Alphas, according to the Alpha, the Rif. The Ken Kasa Bala Trumos, and Bala Trumos also the Ri Ein Tzarech, and according to the Ri, you don't have to wait כדי שיעשו. V'lezei he skim aviyad nizal, and my father the Rosh agreed with this.
Question for you.
Yeah.
Talk about Shi'ashu. In Seward, Alaska. Somebody comes to visit you on the first day of Yom Tov. Okay? He brings you a salmon. A salmon he just caught. Okay? He gives you the gift. Now, obviously, you can't use the first day, but you can use the second day.
Yes.
Right? Now,
well, that's a machlokas, but let's assume
for those who hold.
Yeah.
Okay. Motzei Chag Rishon comes, and either a Jew or even a non-Jew cooks it under hashgacha.
Yeah.
Okay. Is the zman she'yashu from the moment he started cooking it, or does he have to, once it's finished and cooked, does that when the clock starts?
No. If he starts cooking after Bekday Shi'ashu, there's not a problem.
No. He's just started cooking. The balabayit's not involved, right? His servant, Jew or non-Jew, is cooking it. He starts right after
Yom Tov is over.
Yom Tov is over. Okay, he doesn't wait for the balabayit to now eat it. Does he have to wait? How much does he have to wait?
Well, that would be a machlokas, because according to Rabbeinu Tam, No one else has to wait Bekday Shi'asu. He does, but if someone else is cooking it...
Bekday Shi'asu from when? From when it's finished cooking?
Hold on. I don't care. So what he's doing at this point is mutter, but the Bekday Shi'asu for the other guy, it could have been, you can eat raw salmon, so it wouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
That's Rabbeinu Tam. According to Rashi, where everyone would have to wait Bekday Shi'asu, you'd have to wait Bekday Shi'asu.
Again, but because you could eat it raw, the Bekday Shi'asu starts when they actually start, when Shabbat is over.
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay.
Ve'im hu sefek im ba mechutz l'tchum. If we're not sure where it came from. Im lo l'Rashi mutter. Im lo, I'm sorry. If we don't know whether it came from outside the tchum or not. L'Rashi mutter. According to Rashi, it's mutter. Because it's a sefek whether today is Yom Tov, right? Sefek Rishon, Sefek Sheni. It's also a sefek whether he bought it mechutz l'tchum, so it's a sveika, so it's mutter. Divrei hagaonim Asur, and the gaonim said it was Asur. The kasav of Rashba, and the Rashba wrote, Sha'af l'divrei hagaonim ein le'asor ela benachri she'ein shruyi imo be'ir. The Rashba says, when do we say this? It's only with a Jew, a non-Jew that doesn't live in the city. Then I can be concerned he brought it from outside. But a non-Jew that lives in the city. And this type of fruit or vegetable or fish or whatever it is can be found in this city. Right? Ein lechush misefek. We're not concerned, right? Meaning we don't, maybe he lives here, the stuff is found here, he didn't go out and bring it back in. V'davar she'ein bimino במחובר, and things that are not attached, שהובא לישראל ביום טוב ראשון של Rosh Hashanah, it was brought to him on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, but it's never something that's attached to him. Mutar b'sheni, it's allowed in the second. Afal pi shekedusha achasin, even though they're one kedusha. Shein alav iser chana, because there was no preparation done. Meaning, since this isn't the thing that could be harvested now, there was no malacha of preparation done. In fact, they brought it to me, so I'm not supposed to have non-Jews bringing me things on Yom Tovim, so I have to wait a little bit. V'lo davar tului b'kedusha, it's not something that is kedusha. Shnamar kedusha achasin, because they have one kedusha. Ela mishum kinsa, but it's a fine. Shema yomru lo lahavi v'dayo im kinsa b'rishon v'ken b'shabbos l'yom tov. And it's enough if we fine him for one day. Meaning, we're concerned he's going to ask someone to bring him. If he can't use it now, I'm not going to tell him to do it. It's not worth it. I'm not going to tell someone to do something now that I can only use tomorrow. These are the halachas of non-Jews bringing gifts to Jews on Yom Tovim. I do remember that Shabbos Cholamoid Pesach in Los Angeles, Kellogg's always attached a box of cereal with the newspaper. Not Shabbos, it was Sunday. Sunday
newspaper had it tucked in there.
Had it tucked in, right? There's this whole shaila, right? What you're supposed to do? What you're supposed to do with this?
I don't know if now you're just talking about somebody drops in on you, or you invite somebody. I remember my parents, especially on Sukkot, they invited non-Jewish friends. They come to the sukkah, share a meal with us. Okay. Now you know that they're going to bring something. You know they're going to bring something. So does this make a difference in everything we're talking about now?
Yeah, I mean, if it's something that, let's take a simple example. If they have grapevines in their backyard,
Let's about something relative today. They bring a box of candy, a kosher box of candy.
The assumption would be they didn't bring it michutz l'tchum. They wouldn't have any prohibition of buying such a thing, even if they would buy it on Yom Tov. They don't have a prohibition of buying and selling, so there wouldn't be a problem. The only time we have problems, right, is when there is a concern that they could have either brought it chutz l'tchum or a malacha would have been involved in getting it, like trapping it or harvesting it
And what
on
if I
Yom Tov.
ask them to bring it?
That's more of a problem. But I
Well,
don't.
you're
If they say, what can I bring? And you say,
Well, you're asking
bring a
for
box of
Chag.
candy.
Yeah.
But you're asking before Chag.
Yeah,
They're
that's
asking me
right.
before Chag, right? They're
I
asking me
don't-
before Chag.
I don't.
So then I go even then I can stretch it and say, are you allowed to order something before Chag to be delivered on
On
Chag?
Chag.
Groceries, for instance, fresh food on Chag. It's all Goyim who are doing it now.
I don't think so. Because again, I mean, if the goy is doing it for whatever reason, he
What's your
feels.
halacha, though?
Let me. Well, you see, there's a knas on some of these things.
Right, but I'm trying to figure out if I ordered before Yom Tov.
It's a complicated thing. I mean, this has to do. We have these issues with caterers, what caterers can do on Yom Tov and so on, because with their non-Jewish employees and a normal type of business transaction, which I would include in that delivery from a store today, right? I would think is prohibited, having their delivery. Having said that, I remember that many years ago when I was at B'nai David, and there was kosher Dunkin' Donuts across the street. Only existed for a few years on the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And we paid them in advance for donuts to serve on Simchas. Anyway, but these things are not necessarily the simplest thing in the world, and people are way too lenient on them. So I think sometimes when people are too lenient on things, it's sometimes a good idea to be a little bit more machmir on them.